The knock came at 9:37 p.m. on a Friday. Mark Wilson stood frozen in his kitchen, a half-empty glass of whiskey in his hand, wondering who could possibly be at his door. It had been exactly 7 days since the judge had finalized his divorce from Elaine, 7 days of stumbling through a new reality where he was now a single father to 6-year-old Emma. 7 days of pretending he wasn't drowning. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach already, you're not alone. Stay with me until the end to discover how this unexpected visitor changed everything, in ways nobody could have predicted. If this story resonates with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more real, emotional stories that remind us of the unexpected ways life can surprise us. Mark peered through the peephole and nearly dropped his glass. Standing on his porch, illuminated by the dim porch light, was Catherine, his ex-wife's younger sister. The same Catherine who had been conspicuously absent from the courtroom, the same Catherine who had once been his closest ally in the family before disappearing from their lives 2 years ago after a mysterious falling out with Elaine. "What are you doing here?" Mark asked, opening the door just enough to speak through the gap, conscious of Emma sleeping upstairs. Catherine looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, but the same determined set to her jaw that reminded him painfully of Elaine in their early days. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about Emma. And Elaine. And everything." Something in her tone made Mark step back and open the door wider. As Catherine stepped into the house that had once been filled with the sounds of a family but now echoed with absence, neither of them could have possibly imagined how this single moment would set in motion events that would reshape all their lives. The living room was a testament to Mark's week of single parenthood, toys scattered across the floor, dishes piled in the sink visible from the doorway, and framed photos of happier times still hanging on the walls because he hadn't found the strength to take them down. "I'm sorry about the mess," Mark said automatically, suddenly seeing his home through Catherine's eyes. "I didn't come to judge your housekeeping," Catherine replied, removing her coat and revealing a manila envelope clutched in her hand. "I came because I couldn't stay silent anymore." Mark gestured toward the couch, and they sat at opposite ends, the space between them filled with unspoken history and the ghost of Elaine. "Elaine told everyone I abandoned the family," Catherine began, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of the envelope. "That I chose my career over being there for Emma, for all of you. But that's not what happened, Mark." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you talking about?" "2 years ago, I discovered something about Elaine. Something that made her force me out of your lives when I confronted her." Catherine's voice trembled. "And I think it's why your marriage fell apart, even if you don't know it yet." Upstairs, Emma stirred in her sleep, unaware that her aunt's words were about to change the foundation of everything her father thought he knew about the past 7 years of his life. Catherine opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of documents. "Elaine has been living a double life, Mark. And I have proof." The documents revealed a shocking truth. Elaine had been secretly transferring money from their joint accounts to fund another household, another family, for years. Bank statements, property records, and even photographs showed Elaine with a man and a young boy who appeared to be around 4 years old. Mark felt the room spin. "This can't be real," he whispered, but even as the words left his mouth, pieces began falling into place. Elaine's unexplained absences, business trips that seemed unnecessary, her increasing emotional distance, and the mysterious depletion of their savings that she had always blamed on market fluctuations. "I confronted her when I found out," Catherine continued, her voice steadier now. "She threatened me, Mark. Said if I told you, she would make sure I never saw Emma again. Said she would turn the entire family against me with lies. And she did exactly that." Mark's hands shook as he examined a photograph of Elaine holding a little boy on what appeared to be a recent Christmas morning, while she had told Mark she was at a conference in Chicago. "Why come forward now?" Mark asked, his voice hollow. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "Because the divorce is final, and she got exactly what she wanted, primary custody of Emma, the house you bought together, and half your future earnings. all while hiding her other life from the court. She leaned forward. And because that little boy deserves to know his half-sister. Emma deserves to know her half-brother. And you deserve the truth. The truth hit Mark like a physical blow. Not only had Elaine betrayed their marriage, but she had created an entire separate family, and now she had primary custody of Emma, with Mark only seeing his daughter on weekends and Wednesday evenings. "I need a drink," Mark muttered, standing up on unsteady legs. Catherine followed him to the kitchen. "There's more, Mark. I've been investigating for months. Elaine used your joint money to buy them a house. She's been claiming to be divorced from you for years in that other life. The man, his name is Robert, I don't think he even knows about you." Mark poured another whiskey with a shaking hand. "How could I not have known? How could I have been so blind?" "Because you trusted her," Catherine said simply. "Just like I did. Just like we all did." That night, as Catherine slept in the guest room, Mark sat in Emma's room watching his daughter sleep, tears streaming down his face. How could he protect her from this? How could he fight Elaine when she had already won everything in court? The custody arrangement suddenly felt like a knife twisting in his gut. Emma would be returning to Elaine's house tomorrow afternoon, to a mother who had been living a lie. Morning brought no clarity, only the cheerful obliviousness of Emma excited to have her Aunt Catherine there for breakfast. The two adults exchanged glances over Emma's head, silently agreeing to shield her from the truth for now. After breakfast, while Emma watched cartoons, Mark and Catherine sat at the kitchen table planning their next steps. "We need to go back to court," Catherine insisted. "With this evidence, you could get the custody arrangement revised." Mark ran his hands through his hair. "It would mean dragging Emma through more trauma, more confusion. Is that fair to her? Is it fair to let her live in Elaine's web of lies?" Catherine countered. "To keep her from knowing her half-brother? To let Elaine get away with this?" Their conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Mark opened it to find his best friend and lawyer, James, standing there with a concerned expression. "You sounded terrible on the phone," James said, stepping inside. "What's so urgent that?" He stopped when he saw Catherine. "Oh. I didn't realize you had company." "This is Catherine, Elaine's sister," Mark explained, leading James to the kitchen. "And she's brought some information that changes everything." Over the next hour, James reviewed the documents, his expression growing increasingly grave. "This is substantial," he finally said. "Fraud, perjury, misrepresentation to the court. Elaine claimed under oath that there were no other dependents, no other properties, no hidden assets." "Can we reopen the case?" Mark asked. James nodded slowly. "Yes, but it won't be easy. And Elaine will fight back hard when cornered." "I'm not afraid of her anymore," Catherine said firmly. "I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes." The next few weeks unfolded in a blur of legal meetings, court filings, and the hardest part, continuing to co-parent with Elaine while knowing what he now knew. Mark maintained a facade of normalcy during pickups and drop-offs, swallowing his rage and betrayal for Emma's sake. Catherine, meanwhile, had moved into a small apartment nearby and quickly re-established her bond with Emma, who was delighted to have her aunt back in her life. The three of them, Mark, Catherine, and Emma, began forming a new kind of family unit, finding moments of joy amid the legal storm brewing around them. The court date was set for 6 weeks after Catherine's revelatory visit. In that time, James had built an airtight case, even locating Robert and his son through a private investigator. Robert, it turned out, had been just as deceived as Mark, believing Elaine was a divorced single mother who worked as a consultant, explaining her frequent absences. The day before the hearing, Elaine unexpectedly appeared at Mark's door. "We need to talk," she said, her voice ice-cold. "Alone." Mark stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. "There's nothing to discuss, Elaine. Save it for court." "You're making a mistake," Elaine hissed. If you go through with this, everyone gets hurt, especially Emma. Is that what you want? What I want, Mark replied, finding strength he didn't know he possessed, is for our daughter to grow up with truth and integrity. Something you know nothing about. Elaine's face hardened. Catherine always was jealous of me. And now she's manipulating you, turning you against me. Stop, Mark interrupted. The bank statements, the property records, the photographs, those aren't manipulation. That's your life, Elaine. Your choices. I did what I had to do, Elaine said, her voice suddenly vulnerable. I felt trapped, Mark. With you, with this life. I needed something that was just mine. For a moment, Mark almost felt sorry for her. Then he remembered the years of lies, the gaslighting, the way she'd turned her family against Catherine, the way she'd fought for primary custody of Emma while maintaining another family. You should leave, he said quietly. We'll see you in court. The courtroom was tense the next morning. Elaine sat with her attorney, her face a mask of composure. Mark sat with James and Catherine, trying to focus on breathing. And in the back of the courtroom sat Robert, looking shell-shocked and angry, having been served with his own set of documents the previous week. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who had presided over their original divorce, listened as James presented the new evidence. Elaine's attorney tried to object, to discredit Catherine, to paint Mark as a desperate ex-husband, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the judge asked Elaine to respond to the allegations, something unexpected happened. Instead of denying everything, Elaine broke down. I never meant for it to go this far, she sobbed. It started as an affair, but then there was a pregnancy, and I couldn't bring myself to end either relationship. I loved them both families. Is that so terrible? The courtroom fell silent. The judge's expression was unreadable as she called for a brief recess. In the hallway, Mark found himself face to face with Robert for the first time. I had no idea, Robert said, his voice hollow. About you, about any of it. She told me she was divorced, that her ex-husband was uninvolved, uninterested in their daughter. Mark felt a surge of empathy for this man who had also been deceived. She told me she was at conferences when she was with you. I believed her completely. The two men stood in awkward silence, united by betrayal. Your son, Mark finally said. How is he handling this? Robert ran a hand over his face. He's confused. Asking for his mom. I haven't told him everything yet. And your daughter? The same, Mark replied. They're the innocent ones in all this. When court resumed, the judge delivered her ruling. The original divorce decree was vacated due to fraud. Custody of Emma would temporarily be awarded to Mark, with supervised visitation for Elaine pending a full custody evaluation. The financial settlement would be completely reassessed given the hidden assets. As they left the courtroom, Catherine squeezed Mark's hand. It's just the beginning, she warned. There's a long road ahead. Mark nodded, watching Elaine being consoled by her attorney across the lobby. I know. But for the first time in years, I feel like I'm standing on solid ground. The following months were challenging but transformative. Mark adjusted to being Emma's primary caregiver, learning to balance work and parenting with help from Catherine, who had become an essential part of their daily lives. Emma struggled with the changes at first, missing her mother and confused by the adults' explanations, carefully tailored to her age. The most surprising development came 3 months after the court hearing, when Mark and Robert began coordinating playdates between Emma and her half-brother, Tyler. The first meeting was awkward and tentative, but the children, with the resilience of youth, quickly formed a bond over shared interests and the inexplicable connection of shared blood. Watching them play together in the park one autumn afternoon, Catherine approached Mark with 2 cups of coffee. You're doing an amazing job with her, she said, nodding toward Emma who was showing Tyler how to use the monkey bars. I couldn't have done it without you, Mark replied honestly. You changed everything when you knocked on my door that night. Catherine smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, something that had been rare in those early days. I was terrified you'd hate me for bringing such chaos into your life. Chaos? Mark laughed softly. You brought truth. That's different. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the children play. Over the months, their relationship had evolved from allies in crisis to genuine friends, and lately, something more that neither had been ready to acknowledge. Mark, Catherine said hesitantly. I've been offered a job back in my old firm. It would mean moving back to Chicago. Mark felt an unexpected pang in his chest. Oh. When would you leave? That's the thing, she said, turning to face him. I'm going to turn it down. If that's okay with you. Why would you need my permission to turn down a job? Catherine took a deep breath. Because my reason for staying would be you and Emma. And I need to know if that's something you want too. Mark looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not Elaine's sister but Catherine, who had risked everything to bring truth into their lives, who had stood by him through the darkest period, who had loved Emma with a fierce protectiveness that matched his own. I think, he said slowly, that would be something we both want. Their first kiss was interrupted by the children's laughter as Tyler chased Emma across the playground. Mark and Catherine broke apart, both blushing like teenagers. Aunt Catherine. Dad. Watch me. Emma called, preparing to go down the slide. As they waved and cheered, Mark felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. Life wasn't perfect. Elaine was still fighting the custody evaluation, there were still difficult conversations ahead with Emma as she grew older, and blending their lives together would bring its own challenges. But standing there in the autumn sunshine, with Catherine beside him and the children playing happily, Mark understood that sometimes the most devastating betrayals can lead to unexpected blessings. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a beginning. And sometimes, the knock on the door that you dread answering turns out to be exactly what you needed all along. 1 year to the day after Catherine had appeared on his doorstep with the manila envelope that changed everything, Mark proposed. They married in a small ceremony with Emma as the flower girl and Tyler as the ring bearer. Elaine, who had eventually accepted the new reality and was working to rebuild a more honest relationship with both her children, attended with a quiet dignity that suggested her own journey toward healing had begun. As Mark and Catherine exchanged vows, promising honesty and faithfulness above all else, the gathered friends and family witnessed not just a wedding but the culmination of a story that had begun in betrayal and ended in redemption, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, unexpected light can find its way in, if only we have the courage to open the door. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the complex, beautiful, and sometimes painful journeys we take in life. Remember that even in your darkest moments, an unexpected knock on the door might be the beginning of your greatest chapter.